This is the electric bike company Model J, and it might look like a moto or moped-style e-bike, but it rides more like a cruiser. So which style does its performance match better? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report, and thanks for joining me today. My name is John. If this is your first time here and you're in the market for an e-bike, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. We're known for our standardized tests and our extremely in-depth reviews, and we want to be your go-to source for information. If our reviews help you to decide on a bike to purchase, please consider using our affiliate link down in the video description. It helps us keep the lights on, but it won't cost you anything extra. But now let's run through a few quick highlights of the Model J and then go through the spec sheet so we can move on to the bike's test performance. So, Electric Bike Company is known for their beach cruisers, and all of their bikes have a really unique feel. They're super comfortable and relaxed, they're approachable for riders of all ages, and every single component from the motor and battery down to the individual screws is intentionally selected for the best possible customer experience. We weren't sure if the Model J was going to break from the norm in any of those areas since it looks so different, but we were really happy to find out that it still has the heart and soul of an Electric Bike Company cruiser. One big bonus from that is that Electric Bike Company offers a huge level of customization on this and all of their bikes. There's a base model that's priced around $1,400 at the time of filming, but you can completely change the build with all sorts of different components and colors. So if you don't like the BMX style handlebars, you can swap those out for cruiser bars, flat bars, or chopper style handlebars. Maybe you want more battery capacity. The bike can carry up to 3 48 volt 672 watt hour batteries. You can choose from over 40 standard color options for each of the major elements of the bike. You can mix and match with different colors for each, and you can even send in your own color for their paint technicians to match. We'll leave a link to a separate video where we actually got to tour their factory down in the video description, but the bottom line is that you don't get this level of customization on most other e-bikes out there. The last major highlight that separates the Model J from similar bikes is its handling. Most of the other moto-style e-bikes we've tested came with dual crown suspension forks and 20-inch wheels, so they sat really low and they felt pretty limited in their turning ability. The Model J has 24-inch wheels, so it sits a little higher, and it comes standard with a rigid fork, but even the optional single crown suspension fork that we have allows for a lot more maneuverability. To run through the rest of the specs and components, the Model J has a 500 watt rear hub motor with a cadence sensor, which is powered by a single removable 672 watt hour battery. It has a single speed drivetrain with a 52 tooth chainring and a 16 tooth cog, and that's covered by a chain guard. There are Bengal Aries 3 hydraulic disc brakes with 2 piston calipers and 180mm rotors on both wheels. The tires are custom made for Electric Bike Company. They're 24-inch by 3-inch with puncture protection and a street tread pattern. The optional suspension fork on our test bike has 80mm of travel, and then of course we also have the optional front cargo rack with a bit of a different lighting system. So normally there's a large single headlight that would be included in place of the cargo rack, but with this setup there are 2 separate lights for both high and low beams. Regardless of the headlight setup, the bike comes with an integrated tail light that functions as a brake light mounted beneath the custom leather saddle. And then up in the cockpit, there's an adjustable stem and a really nice full color display in the center. We measured a width of 750mm for the BMX style handlebars, and then again we have some differences from the base model. Locking leather grips and a thumb throttle are standard, but our test bike has rubber grips and a half twist throttle on the right handlebar, and then there's a module next to that for the headlight beam. And then on the left, we have a small 3-button control panel to operate the bike, and we'll dive into the user interface in a separate section later on. But wrapping things up, the bike ships as a Class 2 with a 20 mph speed limit, but it can be unlocked to either Class 3 with pedal assist up to 28 or an off-road mode that lets the throttle reach 28 as well. It comes in 2 standard colors. There's this black option and then a blue color called Ocean Breeze. The bike has a maximum weight capacity of 420 pounds. The battery is UL 2271 certified, and then every bike from Electric Bike Company includes a phenomenal warranty with 10 years on the motor and frame, 2 years on the battery, and even 30 days on the paint. And for those who care about craftsmanship, all Electric Bike Company bikes are assembled in California. Many of the components are made overseas, but the company does as much as they can feasibly do in-house, including building their wheels, painting their frames and components, and pre-building all their bikes. So all you have to do when it arrives is attach the handlebars. So with all that out of the way, let's see how the Model J performed in our speed, brake, hill, and range tests, and compare that with other moped-style bikes we've tested. In our brake test, we measured the distance the Model J took to stop after our tester Griffin throttled up to 20 miles per hour and applied the brakes. We did this process 3 times to smooth out any inconsistencies, and our final average was 19 feet and 1 inch. So that's an excellent result. The average for all moped-style e-bikes with hydraulic brakes we've tested is currently 19 feet and 9 inches, so the Model J did better than average. Bikes of this style tend to have really solid results in this test, so why did this one do even better? We chalk that up to 2 factors. So number 1, this bike weighed far less than most of the other moto-style bikes we've tested, so it was also a lot easier to slow down. Ours weighed about 67 pounds since it was carrying both cargo racks at the time, but that's way below the 85 to 95 pounds that others have weighed, so the Model J's brakes just didn't have to work as hard. But number 2, this Bengal brake system has some serious power. Like, I don't think I'd want the brakes to be any more powerful than they are. If I really clamped down, the speed at which it stopped could feel pretty intense, but definitely well under control. The brakes felt great under normal application, and they stopped the bike quickly when simulating an emergency situation. So bottom line, I think this is a great setup for the Model J's size and weight capacity. Second on the list is our speed test. I took the Model J out to the bike paths and tested its maximum speed with each pedal assist setting in both Class 2 and off-road mode. Let's go see what happened, and then we can go over the results back here. All right, so we are here for a Class 2 speed test on the Model J, starting things off with no pedal assist. And as is pretty common with this style of bike, pedaling is a little bit of a chore. So number 1, a fairly low seating position with not great leg extension. But then number 2, a single speed drivetrain on this bike paired with a pretty big chainring that's fairly tough to move. So let's go ahead and let's see. Going around 6 miles per hour here, then just on pedal power. But let's go up to PAS 1. So one thing that I've noticed is that the bike's pedal assist range, or speed, seems to be more of a range than a set limit. And I'm actually gonna switch over to throttle here. One of the great things about this bike is that there are different speed limits for the throttle that shares the same speed limits as the pedal assist system. So let's see, looks like we're kind of falling in a range of, let's say maybe between 8.5 and 9.5. Yep, all right, let's go up to PAS 2. So it seems to sort of top off and then kind of fall back down and then kind of, fluctuate in that range. So this one seems to be maybe between 11 and 12.5 or so. Maybe more between 11 and 12. Yeah, okay. I think I was right the first time. Let's go up to PAS 3. So definitely starting to pick up on speed. And I'm really liking this cruising speed. This is where I would probably really start to ride the bike. It's a nice casual pace. So looking at kind of around 15 miles per hour. Maybe between 14.5 and 15.5. Okay, let's go up to PAS 4. It seems to be a pretty good balance of speeds in each setting. So up to 17.5, and then back down to around 16.5. All right, so that's our range here. almost up to 21 and then kind of starting to fall back down. So it looks like kind of maybe 19 and a half to 20 and a half is about correct there. But okay, yeah, that looks good. Let's go see how it does in off-road mode. All right, so we are back for an off-road mode test, and that's gonna allow the throttle to go up to 28 miles per hour, but it is still limited to each of the max speeds of the pedal assist system settings. So we're starting off in PAS 1, and it looks like we're again gonna have a range of speeds that it kind of fluctuates between. But that seems to be like maybe 9.5 up to 10.5, maybe up towards 11. All right. Let's go up to PAS 2. All right, starting to pick up a little bit. Get around this bend. Definitely zippier already than the Class 2 mode test for sure. We hit 16 miles an hour, and then we're kind of falling back down around 14 and a half, it looks like. All right, so then let's go up to PAS 3. I gotta say, I'm really liking PAS 3 in both modes. I think that's kind of where personally I start having a little bit more fun. Yeah, definitely moving here. So up to about 21 and a half, and then starting to fall back down a little bit. Down into the 19s. So kind of around 19 and a half for a min. All right, let's go up to PAS 4. All right, yeah, definitely flying now. All right, we're over 23, up to about 24. Yep. And then starting to fall back down. Well, maybe not. All right, so we're kind of holding around 24, maybe around 24 and a half. And then let's finish things off in PAS 5. All right, yeah, definitely flying. It still feels like controlled and kind of gradually building, but you know, if you like speed, you definitely can't complain about where we're at right now. We're up to 27 miles an hour and then kind of falling back down a little bit. Yeah, looks like around 27 is where it topped out, and it's holding pretty steady, so we will call it there, and let's go check out the throttle. All right, for the last part of the test here, we'll do a throttle acceleration test and see how quickly the bike can hit 20 miles per hour. So let's start in 3, 2, 1, go. And again, I'm in PAS 5 since that allows the bike to reach that speed. All right, picking up pretty quick. 17, 19, 20. So the bike's speed seemed to fluctuate by 1 to 2 miles per hour in both tests, but let's actually focus on the average in each setting. To run through those numbers, I pedaled around 5.8 miles per hour with no assist, and then in the Class 2 test, my numbers with a throttle were 9.1 miles per hour in PAS 1, 11.7 in PAS 2, 15.1 in PAS 3, 16.9 in PAS 4, and 20.2 miles per hour in PAS 5. If we look at that data in a graph, it shows that each jump in speed is pretty similar, and that lined up really well with how intuitive the bike felt. Every time I bumped up into the next highest setting, the amount of extra power I got just felt like it made sense, and that's why we consider this kind of pattern to be ideal. In the off-road mode test, the bike was faster across the board, and it had a pretty similar pattern of speed levels. So my average was about 10.2 miles per hour in PAS1, 15.2 in PAS2, 20.5 in PAS3, 24.1 miles per hour in PAS4, and 26.8 miles per hour in PAS5. Overall, I think this programming worked pretty well. It kept the bike feeling really manageable in the lower settings while still offering a bit more oomph in the higher ones. I really liked that Electric Bike Company set different speed limits for the throttle with the 5 pedal assist system settings. Most riders that get moped-style bikes stick to the throttle, so these different speed limits are an easy way to control speed, and not many of the other bikes of this style that we've tested have actually had this feature. Overall, I think the bike's gradual acceleration makes it more accessible to riders of all ages. It's definitely not going to take off on you. Personally, I wouldn't have minded a bit more punch, but I appreciate the focus on safety and control. In our range test, we rode the bike using only its throttle until its 672 watt-hour battery ran out of charge, and then we compared our results to Electric Bike Company's advertised range. The bike traveled 25.3 miles for us, so the advertised range of 25 miles was right on the money. We were really happy with those results for a few reasons. So first, Electric Bike Company advertises that they do their own range testing, so our results seem to validate that. But second, the Model J did well when compared to similar bikes we've tested. There's one caveat in that we only recently switched from doing our standard pedal tests to throttle-only range tests on moped-style bikes, so we don't have a ton of data to compare to, but this one ended up right about in the middle when looking at the big picture, and it actually did a little better than we expected based on its motor and battery specs. We think the bike's relatively low weight, and the fairly reserved feel of its motor gave it a slight edge, but the fact that its battery capacity was greater than its motor's nominal output was another really great thing to see. But 25 miles should cover most leisure rides or a round-trip commute to work or school for most people, and if you need more distance, you can add a second or third battery to the bike when building it. And then Electric Bike Company offers a variety of chargers as well. So a 2 amp charger comes with the bike, but you can upgrade to a fast 3.5 amp charger with a charging time of about 4 hours per battery, or a 5 amp charger that can top off the battery in less than 3 hours. Next up is our hill test at the infamous Hellhole Trail, which has an average grade of 12% over a third of a mile. Our tester Justin took the Model J up the path twice, once when throttling and again with pedaling, both times using PAS5. Let's see how it did, and I'll see you back here in the studio shortly.
All right, we are out here on the Electric Bike Company Model J, and you'll notice a little darker than normal. It's because I wanted to not get fried. It's been a little bit hot lately. So anyways, we're gonna do the throttle test here when it's nice and cool and just gorgeous out. So sorry it's a little bit darker, but we're gonna see how this does. So far through this first turn, we're down to about 6 miles per hour. 5. Kind of seems to be holding steady right about 5 miles per hour here. Down to 4. Come on, baby. I think if I can hold it through here and then gain a little bit of speed, it'll be able to make it up here. Again, this hill's very steep, so let's listen to the motor here. So yeah, so drop down to 3 miles per hour. You can hear the motor's not making a lot of noise. Kind of typical when you're going a little slower. But I'm building some speed now. I'm up to 6 miles per hour, 7. And we're gonna see if it's got enough flow and torque to kind of get it through this last punchy section. If it does, then we're home free, but I'm almost nervous. I don't want to speak too soon. So it's 7 miles per hour, 6, 5. This is the steepest section right here. 4, 3. Come on. It feels like it's got that low in torque to get me there. I think we're gonna do it. Awesome. So yeah, kind of what I'm feeling is that, you know, this one is a little more controlled than some of the other moto style bikes that I've got, but the fact that it can make it up this hill on throttle, that's pretty impressive. You know, we'll see kind of where it goes, but it's kind of reminded me a little bit of the Super 73. So that's not a bad thing. That's probably the most popular moto-style e-bike. Obviously, we'll need to check the final scores here. But yeah, so, you know, very relaxed, comfortable. Cruising up here, I actually kind of like the riser bars. A little more comfortable than some, if you want to sit up more upright and cruise around. But it's going to make it up. So great job by the EBC, well, great job by the EBC Model J. We'll go to the tape and we'll see kind of what it did, and then we'll turn around and do the pedal test. Okay, now we are on the pedal test after completing the throttle test, and you know, it's a single gear moto style bike, not my favorite test. You don't get a lot of leg extension, and without any gears I can't shift, but that's fine because most people just throttle anyways. So the first section there, right about 8 miles per hour. At the low end, 7. And I am having to push a little bit on this. This isn't just kind of soft pedal and go. I am having to use a little effort here. At about 6 miles per hour. Motor, I'd say it's right about average, maybe a little below average on that. Through this next section here, I'll let you listen to it. Here, build up here, and then it'll get a little lower through this section here. So I dropped down to about 6-7 miles per hour. So my recommendation on this with hills, something this steep, which doesn't exist very often, is to kind of both pedal and throttle, so you kind of get the most out of everything there. You'll notice breathing a little bit because I did have to work a little bit on this, but I mean, I was a little bit worried after the throttle test. Was not as bad as what I thought. So it made it up. Let's go check the tape and see how it did.
Just so you know, that was actually our second test with the Model J. It wasn't able to complete the throttle portion of the test the first time with the motor's 60 Newton meters of torque and peak of 749.99 watts. But we worked with the folks at Electric Bike Company to increase the controller's current and give the bike a bit more juice. We encourage the brand to make that change standard, so the bike has a bit more climbing power right out of the box. So with the higher current and a higher peak wattage, the Model J was successful. Justin finished the throttle test in 2 minutes and 30 seconds with an average of 7.2 miles per hour. And then the pedal test was a little faster at 1 minute 50 seconds at 9.9 miles per hour. So the throttle result was really interesting. There was actually only 1 second of difference between the Model J and the one model from Super 73 that we've tested, the S2. The Model J's results show that it's not the fastest when it comes to hills, but it does have the potential to handle some fairly extreme situations. This again comes back to the controlled and more relaxed feel that Electric Bike Company opted for here. There are a ton of overpowered moto-style e-bikes out there, so we appreciate that they took a bit of a different approach. With a slight upgrade, the bike can give riders the option to pedal or throttle over hills while still being safe and accessible. The Model J is a really unique bike, and we've talked about its test results, but how does it feel to ride? Let's hit the bike paths one more time and talk about the basics of its ride quality, and then we'll meet back here to go a little bit deeper. All right, so the Model J is Electric Bike Company's take on a moto or moped style e-bike. And I say that because it's a little bit of a hybrid design. So it kind of feels and rides a little bit more like a cruiser, but it also kind of has a BMX influence with the handlebars on the standard model. There's a single frame size that's made for riders from 5 foot up to 6'8", although we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And as far as the riding position goes, I'll kind of break that down by my lower and upper body. So my lower body is a little bit crouched. I've got a pretty good bend in the knee, just with where the pedals are, but my upper body's pretty upright and arms are fairly outstretched, but I do have a bend at the elbows. So I'd say overall it feels really comfortable. Also really like these rubber grips that are optional as well. Let's see, so as far as fit goes, you get a little bit more adjustment here than you do on most bikes of this style. There's an adjustable stem that allows you to change your handlebar height, and then also with these riser bars you can loosen up the front of the stem and kind of change the angle of the handlebars, which will affect your reach. And let's see, there's no suspension on the bike that comes standard, so it would normally be a rigid fork, but we have an optional 80mm coil suspension fork that helps to smooth out the ride. But even without that, I feel like you'd be in pretty good shape just with the tires and the thickness of the saddle. So the tires are 24" by 3" with puncture protection. They're custom for Electric Bike Company, and they have a street tread pattern. I can't remember if I said that or not, but that size of tire compared to the 20x4 or so that we usually see on this style of bike makes it a little bit more comfortable to roll over bumps. But then you can also, you know, as with any other fat tire, air it down a little bit to give yourself a little bit more cushion. And then the bike has a 750 watt rear hub motor with a cadence sensor, and I'm sorry, that is a 500 watt rear hub motor with a cadence sensor. I will go ahead and show that off here. So kick up to PAS 5, we will coast a little bit, and then I will turn the cranks now. All right, so that was pretty fast re-engagement. I've seen that kind of take about as long as a half turn of the cranks, which honestly feels pretty good. And even if you prefer something a little bit faster, you can always use the throttle to get up to speed. But let's bounce back to the studio and wrap up our discussion. So I'm 5'11", and I found the bike to be pretty comfortable, but we were a little bit skeptical of the huge advertised height range, so I asked a couple of our other testers to try it out. Sydney is just over 5 feet tall, and she had to lean the bike over a little bit when she was getting on or off, but she said it felt fine when she was moving. On the other end of the spectrum is Matthew, who is 6'5", and he experienced the opposite. He had no trouble getting on or off, but he felt a little cramped when riding, so the advertised height range seems close, but maybe a little bit hopeful. This bike really is a cruiser at heart though. Electric Bike Company clearly put a big focus on comfort and on handling. The whole front end of the bike is basically the same as what you'd get on any of their other bikes aside from the BMX style handlebars, so it feels and handles very differently than most of the other moto style e-bikes we've tested, and it's generally a lot more nimble. We'll talk a little bit more about the user interface later on, but I found the bike pretty easy to operate. I liked the optional twist throttle, and the small control panel was nice and simple. I thought the color display looked great, although I couldn't read it when I was wearing polarized sunglasses. Changing the bike settings could be a little bit of a chore, and I'd like to be able to turn off the loud alarm beep that happens when you're plugging in the battery or unplugging it, but overall those points of critique are pretty minor. One other really cool thing about the Model J is just how much utility it has. So of course you have the option for front and rear cargo racks, and those use the MIK system, which is compatible with all kinds of baskets and storage bags that can lock into place. There's even a surfboard rack attachment, so if you live near the coast, you can take your bike and your board to the beach. All right, so I want to do a quick walkthrough of the Model J's user interface. So when you turn the bike on, this is the screen that you get. It's sort of a waiver, just in case anybody borrows the bike from you, and you can deactivate that. But if you hit the plus button and then the power button, that just accepts that and takes you to the main screen. So the main display is here. We've got the battery percentage in the top left, followed by the PAS setting. So as you increase that, that will color the white circles. You have a ride time timer there. And then when the bike is turned on, one other safety feature is that the pedal assist system is deactivated. So to deactivate that, you just hold down the minus button for a second. So the prominent feature here is the speedometer on the left side, but then at the sort of top right, you have a few different things that you can run through. So a power meter for the motor that shows the current watt output, a cadence sensor that shows your RPMs, There's a current setting for the amperage of the controller, and then a more precise speedometer. There we go. And then we also have a thermometer for the temperature of the controller and the voltage of the battery. There's also an odometer on the bottom along with a trip computer. And then if we hold the plus and minus buttons, we'll go into the bike settings menu. So we have a couple of different panels here on the left. There's the user panel, which is basically everything that's easy to change. There's a parameters panel, which is all generally stuff that you have to have a passcode for, and that's gonna vary by bike to bike. And then there's an other panel that just includes some display information there. But if we go back to the user settings, so you can change the time at which the bike goes into standby mode. So right now it's set to 5 minutes. You can change your units from miles per hour to kilometers per hour. There's a backlight setting, so you can adjust the brightness of the display. There is actually a colored theme for the display, so you have all these color options that you can choose, and you can see that those will change. And then we also have two technically user interfaces. They differ slightly, but I'll show you what they are. So we just went through mode 1. Mode 2, if you go back to the main display, basically just has a different main speedometer there. And then you can see again that we've customized the color of all the main text and the readout there. But back in the settings menu, if we go to the parameters function, I'm not gonna walk through all of these, but I will show you the class one. And again, every password is gonna be different. You can change the wheel size, you can change the class setting. So there's actually like a little keyboard that comes up, and I'm sorry, I hit the wrong thing. So that is our passcode, but if you go in, then you have class 1 mode, which is pedal assist up to 20. You have class 2, which adds in throttle up to 20. You have class 3, which is throttle at 20 and pedal assist up to 28. And then you have off-road mode, which is 28 with both throttle and the pedal assist system. So I'll just go ahead and get back to that. If you add a torque sensor to your bike at the time of purchase, you can alter between the torque or cadence sensing modes in this setting. We also have an odometer reset, and this is where you deactivate that sort of warning when you first start up the bike. And then you can also adjust the current to the controller, which is what we did for our hill test. And that really is all that we have to cover. So let's move on to the next section of the review. The Model J was a really big departure from what we're used to with moto-style e-bikes, and that definitely had some big upsides as well as a couple of trade-offs. We really dig all the things that make an electric bike company bike unique, like classic styling, tons of customization options, and a super relaxed feel. We expected a bit more power from the bike based on its category, but I think the Model J makes a bit more sense in context with other bikes from this brand. For the most part, the Model J did a great job in our testing with solid speed profile, good braking, respectable range, and decent climbing ability after a little bump in power. It might make a good commuter or errand runner, but of course it could also just be a fun way to get to the beach. I think this bike would be a great choice for teens or young adults who want a moped-style bike they can really customize. So if you're a parent who's looking for a safe e-bike that stays within the legal speed and power limits, definitely keep this one in mind. It's also going to be a great match if you want something that looks a little less aggressive than some of the other moped-style e-bikes on the market. And if you want something that rides like a cruiser but looks a little sportier, we think you'll really dig this bike as well. If you want to play around with all the customization options on the Model J, which I definitely encourage you to do, it's a lot of fun, you can use our link down in the video description. And if you like reading, we'll also leave a second link to our written review there as well. Feel free to send us any questions you might have and let us know what you think about the Model J down in the comments. And please also consider giving this video a like, as the more likes we get, the more people we can reach. But thanks for taking a ride with me today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the electric bike company Model J.